Right. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Yes, welcome back.
This time we're looking at the CMF Phone 1,
Ooh.
but we're going to be focusing specifically on its gaming capabilities.
Okay, interesting.
We want to figure out, is this phone right for you?
Yeah.
If you're a mobile gamer, what can you expect?
Yeah. Are you going to be happy with it?
And to help us out today, we have a really in-depth review that we're going to be looking at.
Awesome.
So,
what does it cover?
yeah, this review, it tested out the phone with a few popular games.
Okay.
Like Free Fire Max, BGMI,
Yeah, big one.
and eFootball.
Nice, a good mix.
Yeah, and the really cool thing is that they tested the games at different settings.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we can really see, what this phone can do.
All right, so we're not just getting, general impressions.
Exactly.
We're going to get into the specifics. That's
yeah,
great.
exactly.
I like that.
So that's what we're going to be diving into today.
Awesome.
Before we get into that, though, let's just lay out what the phone is packing.
Okay, the specs.
Exactly. So, if you're not familiar with the CMF Phone 1,
Bill, listen.
it has the Snapdragon 4 Gen 1 chipset.
Okay.
It's at 8 gigabytes of RAM,
Nice.
a 90 hertz AMOLED display,
Okay.
and a 5,000 mAh battery.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so just based on that,
Yeah.
sounds like a pretty solid setup,
Yeah.
especially if you're thinking about the price.
Right.
I mean, that Snapdragon 4 Gen 1, that's a pretty decent mid-range chipset.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the brains of the operation.
Yeah.
And it should be able to handle most games you throw at it,
Right.
without too much trouble.
And 8 gigabytes of RAM, that's a lot of RAM.
Yeah, that's going to help keep things running smoothly.
Yeah.
No more lag, when you're switching between apps.
Yeah.
Or having to reload, game assets.
Exactly. And then that 5,000 mAh battery.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of juice for a long gaming session.
Yeah, that's going to keep you going for a while.
Yeah, nobody wants to be, in the middle of an intense match.
Right.
And then suddenly your phone dies.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Okay, so
The specs sound promising.
they do sound promising.
But let's see how it actually holds up.
Right, so let's jump into the first game,
All right.
which is Free Fire Max.
Okay, Free Fire Max.
So the review highlighted that on medium settings, this phone runs Free Fire Max at a smooth 60 frames per second.
Wow. Okay, so 60 FPS on medium.
Yes.
That means the gameplay is going to look super smooth, especially with that 90 hertz AMOLED display.
Mm-hmm.
The animations are going to be even more fluid and responsive.
Right. It's like watching a movie at a higher frame rate.
Exactly. Everything's just going to look crisper, more lifelike.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think for a lot of casual players, that's probably all you really need.
Yeah, if you prioritize smooth visuals, good responsiveness,
Right.
you're going to be pretty happy with that.
But I'm wondering,
What about the hardcore gamer?
what about the people who need those ultra-high settings?
Right. They want everything maxed out.
So what do they say about that?
So the review did mention that on ultra settings,
Okay.
there were some occasional performance dips.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's not like a deal breaker or anything,
Right.
but it does show,
Says its limitation.
this phone has limitations.
Yeah.
It's not meant for pushing those absolute limits.
Gotcha. So good for most,
Yeah,
but maybe not the hardcore.
exactly.
Okay, let's move on to the next game,
Right.
which was BGMI.
Okay, BGMI, now we're talking.
I know.
This is a demanding game.
Yes, very demanding. And I was kind of worried,
Yeah,
is this phone going to be able to keep up?
right.
And it sounds like,
What they say.
yeah, they said that it struggled a bit,
Okay.
especially when you're playing on those HDR and ultra settings.
Oh, okay.
They said there were frame drops
Oh, no.
and stuttering.
That's the worst.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
No, especially in a game like BGMI.
Right.
That fast-paced action.
So what do you think was causing those issues?
I mean, it really comes down to that chipset. That Snapdragon 4 Gen 1, it's capable,
Yeah.
but it's not really designed for something as intense as BGMI,
Okay.
especially at those high settings. And,
Go on.
remember we talked about the phone heating up?
Yeah.
That's something to consider, too. Imagine you're in the middle of a match.
Right.
Phone's getting hot.
Yeah.
Not only is that uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but over time that can affect your battery life.
Right.
So,
It's maybe not the best choice
yeah, if you're going to be playing BGMI for hours on end.
on those high settings.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, let's move on to something a little bit more positive.
Okay.
They said that eFootball ran beautifully on this phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
So 60 FPS
Okay.
on the high graphics settings.
Wow.
And they said that AMOLED display really shined with this game.
Oh, yeah, I bet the visuals just pop.
Yeah, it's amazing how different games
Mm-hmm.
can really impact the performance.
Yeah.
So what do you think it is about eFootball?
I mean, I think it just comes down to how demanding the game is.
Okay.
BGMI,
Yeah.
that's a very graphically intensive game.
Right.
eFootball, even though it looks great,
Yeah.
it's not as demanding on the hardware.
Gotcha. So the phone's more equipped to handle it.
Exactly. It's like the difference between, running a 5K
Mm-hmm.
and training for a triathlon.
Okay.
The CMF Phone 1 can handle that 5K.
Yeah.
No problem.
All right. So we've seen how the phone handles these different games.
Yeah, good mix.
But what about other features that are important to gamers?
Yeah, like what else is there?
So this review talked about a game mode.
Okay, game mode.
What does that actually do?
Yeah, does it actually make a difference?
Does it actually work?
Yeah.
So game mode is basically a dedicated mode that optimizes the phone's resources specifically for gaming.
Okay.
So we'll do things like block notifications.
Oh, that's nice.
So you know you're not getting interrupted.
Mm.
It will limit background processes
Okay.
that might be slowing things down.
Right.
So it's basically giving your game...
Like a dedicated lane.
Exactly.
It's on the highway.
Yeah. No traffic jams.
I like that.
So it sounds pretty helpful.
It does.
I don't know if it's going to magically transform it
Yeah.
into this crazy powerful gaming phone,
Right.
but
But it's going to help.
it should help.
Yeah, optimize the performance.
Exclude
Get rid of
that.
those distractions.
Okay, so we've talked about the performance.
Mm-hmm.
What are like the key takeaways from this review so far?
I think, the biggest thing is that this phone offers incredible value,
Okay.
especially if you're not, a hardcore gamer.
Right.
That 90 hertz AMOLED display, the battery life, those are standout features.
Yeah.
It can handle a lot of popular games.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're someone who needs to be playing like the most demanding games
Yeah.
at the absolute highest settings,
Right.
this might not be the phone for you.
Okay.
It really comes down to priorities, know?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to dial back the settings a bit to have a phone that excels in other areas and at this price point?
That's a good question.
It is. It's something to think about.
Yeah, and this review gives you the information
It does.
to make that decision.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the performance.
Yep.
I want to get into some of the specific details
Okay. Yeah.
that the review talked about,
Let's do it.
especially that 90 hertz display.
Right.
Because they kind of highlighted it as both a pro and a con.
Yeah. How does that work?
So what are your thoughts on that?
So the 90 hertz, it is a big step up from a standard 60 hertz display.
Okay.
Like if you're scrolling through social media,
Yeah.
it's going to feel super smooth.
All right.
Games, you're going to see less motion blur
Mm-hmm.
when there's fast action.
Yeah.
But once you've experienced a 120 hertz display,
Oh, okay.
like on some of those higher end phones,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to go back.
Oh, interesting.
It's like, watching a movie in super high definition.
Yeah.
And then going back to standard definition, you're going to notice the difference.
Yeah. It's like once you've seen it,
Yeah.
you can't unsee it.
Exactly.
But I mean, realistically,
Yeah.
these people probably aren't going to notice a huge difference.
Right. Especially if they're not coming from a phone with a higher refresh rate.
Right.
And at this price point,
Yeah.
that 90 hertz display is still a great feature.
Yeah.
It enhances the visual experience. You're going to notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what matters.
Okay, so we've covered performance display, battery life.
Mhm.
We talked about the game mode.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up this first part,
Yeah.
is there anything else we should highlight about this phone?
I think it's important to just reiterate.
Okay.
This phone is not designed for those hardcore gamers
Okay.
who need like absolute peak performance.
Right.
No compromises.
Right.
The Snapdragon 4 Gen 1,
Yeah.
it's a great chipset
Mhm.
for everyday use.
Yeah.
It's going to handle a lot of gaming,
Mm.
but it's not going to compete with those, flagship processors. Right.
You find in those top tier gaming phones.
Right. So this is more for someone who enjoys mobile gaming,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe isn't trying to play at the highest setting.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about
Yeah.
choosing the right tool for the job.
Right.
And for a lot of people,
Yeah.
this is going to be more than enough phone
Okay.
to satisfy those mobile gaming needs.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break,
Sounds good.
and we'll be right back.
All right. See you in a bit.
To continue our deep dive
Awesome.
into the CMF Phone 1.
Sounds good.
Couldn't agree more. It really is all about, finding that balance
Yeah.
between features, performance, and price.
Right, because you don't want to break the bank,
Exactly.
but you still want a good experience.
Exactly. And it sounds like this phone does a pretty good job of that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
This review gives you a really clear picture
Yeah.
of what to expect, both the good and the bad.
Exactly.
So you can make, an informed decision. Right. And
And-
speaking of things that might sway your decision.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious about the 90 hertz display.
Okay.
The Rio compared it to those 120 hertz displays.
Yeah, you see on those more expensive phones.
Right.
So is it really that big of a difference?
Is it a deal breaker?
Right? Is it a deal breaker?
Yeah.
It's tough to say. I
Yeah.
mean, for someone who's used to that super smooth 120 hertz,
Yeah.
going back to 90 hertz, it might feel a little bit jarring.
Yeah.
Like imagine watching a movie in super high definition.
Yeah, right.
And then going back to standard definition,
Yeah.
you're going to notice a difference.
Right. You're going to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah, what happened?
Something's not right.
Exactly.
But I think for the average person,
Yeah.
90 hertz is still a big improvement.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
Over 60.
If you're coming from a 60 hertz display,
Mm.
that jump to 90 is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to feel so much smoother.
Yeah, you're going to be like, wow.
Everything's just going to be more responsive.
Yeah, it's like upgrading.
Like,
Yeah. Trading in your old bicycle
okay.
for a brand new one with like smooth tires and better gears.
Yeah, like you're gliding.
It's a completely different experience.
I love that analogy.
It really is. It puts it into perspective.
Yeah. So you know those hardcore tech enthusiasts?
Yeah. They might turn their nose up at it.
Great. They're going to be like 90 hertz.
That's nothing.
But for most people,
90 is going to be great.
yeah, especially at this price.
Exactly. And you're getting a really good display.
Mhm.
It's going to enhance, your whole phone experience,
Right.
not just the gaming.
Okay, so we've talked performance, display, battery life.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else?
I think it's worth mentioning again.
Okay.
This phone,
Yeah.
it's not for the diehards
Okay,
who need the absolute best performance.
right. No compromises.
No compromises. They want the best of the best.
The bleeding edge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the Snapdragon 4 Gen 1,
Yeah.
it's a capable chipset, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to compete with those powerhouse processors that you find in like the dedicated gaming phones.
Right. This is more for someone who enjoys mobile gaming.
Yeah,
But maybe isn't, competing professionally.
exactly. It's like you wouldn't use a sports car
Okay.
to haul groceries,
Okay.
and you wouldn't use a pickup truck to race on a track.
Right.
Each vehicle is designed for a purpose.
Yeah. Different tools for different jobs.
Exactly. And the CMF Phone 1,
Yeah.
it's a fantastic all-around phone.
Mm.
It can handle gaming,
Yeah.
but it's not a dedicated gaming machine.
Right.
It's like that multi-tool that
Yeah.
can do a lot of things well,
Exactly.
but it's not going to replace every tool in your toolbox.
Right.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive
Yeah.
into the CMF Phone 1's gaming capabilities, what's the final verdict?
What should our listener take away from all this? It's like that multi-tool,
Yeah.
it can do a lot of things,
Mhm.
but it's not the best at any one specific thing.
Exactly. It's all about understanding what you need the phone to do.
Right.
Like, what are your priorities?
Mm-hmm.
If you just want a phone that, handles everyday stuff,
Right.
gives you a nice screen you can watch videos on,
Yeah.
play some games, and you don't want to spend a ton of money,
Right.
this phone is a great option.
Yeah. I think it checks a lot of boxes.
It does.
But, if you're that person who's like,
Yeah.
I need the best
Yeah, I need peak performance.
all the time.
No compromises.
Yeah.
Maybe look elsewhere.
Maybe look at a different phone.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of this.
What's that?
We have all this information now.
We do, yeah.
You can make an informed decision.
No more buyer's remorse.
Right.
You know exactly what you're getting into.
Exactly.
And this review lays it all out there.
It does.
All the good, all the bad.
Well, with that being said,
Yeah.
I think we've reached the end of our deep dive
Wow. Time flies when you're
Right.
having fun.
into the CMF Phone 1 and its gaming capabilities.
Sad to see it go.
I know, but
But we'll be back
we'll be back with more deep dive soon.
with another phone to dissect.
Exactly.
All right, but before we go,
Yes.
I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, a little food for thought.
Exactly. So,
Hit us with it.
would you be willing to sacrifice those ultra-high settings
Okay.
in those super demanding games?
Like BGMI.
You could GMI to
Yeah.
have a phone that excels in other areas
Right. Good in other ways.
at a good price.
At a good price. Yeah, that's the question.
That is the question.
It's all about what matters to you
Exactly.
as a user.
Maybe battery life is more important than
Right.
having every setting maxed out.
Or maybe you just want the best display
Yeah.
and you don't care about the frame rate as much.
It's up to you.
Exactly.
There's no right or wrong answer.
It's your phone.
Exactly.
So think about it.
Yeah. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, what are your priorities?
leave a comment down below.
All right, thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.
See